we need to be aware of fallacies. With fallacies, this is false reasoning that occurs when someone attempts to persuade without adequate evidence, or with arguments that are irrelevant or not appropriate. We see this as politicians are guilty of this as well. There's dozens and dozens of different types of fallacies, but if you look at the screen, you'll see there's 7 here that I've listed. And your book talks about these and goes into some type of detail, but I'll just hit a few of these. For example, there's the bandwagon fallacy. This is reasoning that suggests that because everyone else believes something is or is not, then you should too. For example, I could say, well, everybody knows that foods high in fat causes heart problems. Well, maybe not everybody knows, and there's people that eat food with high fat content and they do not have heart problems. So that's a fallacy. Or there's the hasty generalization. That's a conclusion reached without any adequate evidence. I could say that the city does a terrible job of taking care of our elderly. My grandmother lives in a city-owned nursing home, and the floors there are always filthy. Well, just because that one nursing home that my grandmother is at is filthy doesn't mean that all nursing homes are filthy. That's a hasty generalization. There's also ad hominem. This is when you actually attack the person verbally. Maybe not their ideas, but you say, well, you can't listen to that person because, well, they're just stupid. Okay, maybe their ideas aren't logical, but you don't want to attack the person. And there's the red herring. This is what they used to use years ago whenever they wanted to get hunting dogs off the track. They could take a fish, and the hunting dog would quit following the person and start following the fish, wherever they drag the fish. So they want to get the audience off track. For example, a politician that is being accused of taking bribes can call a press conference, and then during the press conference they could talk about, well, this is what I've been trying to do for the city, and I've been trying to help build roads or help in education. Okay, they're not going to talk about the bribery. They're going to try to get you off track and listen to what else they're talking about. And we have the fear appeals. Remember the logos and pathos? A lot of persuaders like to use pathos because of the emotions behind it, and they like to use fear. We see that maybe in a lot of heart healthy ads or non-smoking ads or climate change ads, or whatever the persuader is trying to persuade. They'll maybe use some logic. Think of the ELM method, and then they can use some of the emotion, and they can go through the emotional side with some fear. If you don't do this, then. And that's another fallacy, is the if and then. Is the then really tied to the if? This is stuff that we see going around us, and maybe we just don't pay a lot of attention. But for our class, what we want to do is be aware that that's going on, number one, and number two, we want to make sure that we don't do this. So read through the different types of fallacies and see if you've been guilty of this, maybe in some of your speeches in the past or some of your talks with your friends. Or have you noticed the news media? Have they been guilty of this? Remember, we talked about some of the different theories in the agenda setting theory. Has the media used some of these 7 fallacies that you see? And have they used the fear appeal? And finally, there's different types of speeches. There's introductions, where you're asked to introduce another speaker. There's toasts. These might be spur of the moment. You're asked to give a toast to a special person or to a couple. Then there's award presentations. I've been on a lot of these where you're asked to present an award. Maybe it's an academic award. Maybe it's a sporting award. Then there's nominations. Maybe it's somebody that's nominated for the Rotary president, and you're going to confirm their nominations, or you're asked to say something about the nominee. Then there's acceptance. Maybe somebody's accepting an award, a scholarship, and you were given something, and you're going to have to give a speech to thank everybody for their support. Then there's keynote addresses, and this is when you're asked, it's kind of like a speech that we've done in class. You know what you're going to be talking about. There's commencement addresses. This is what you see at graduation. A lot of you probably had a commencement speaker at your high school graduation, and you'll see one at your college graduation. And there's tributes, just a tribute to a special person. And finally, there's eulogies. These are difficult to do. I've had to do a few of these as well. This is usually what you see at a funeral, and you want to talk about the person's life and their accomplishments and how they're going to be missed. But with all of these, we want to make sure that we use good verbal communication. And look at that bottom box with malaprops and hyperbole and redundancy and idioms and oxymorons. And the book talks about these, and make sure that you look at that in the last part of that chapter. We want to make sure that we use good verbal communication. We tell the stories, and we avoid some irregularities in our speech. No matter where we go, we are bombarded with different types of persuasion tactics against us. That's just part of advertising. But it's important for us to understand what we are supposed to do as the customer. How are we supposed to react? What are they trying to persuade us to do? And what venue are they using to try to persuade us? And also on us as the persuader. What are we trying to persuade the people to do? Are we ethical? Are we going for emotion? Are we going for logic? Are we using fallacies? Or is other people using fallacies? It's important to understand this and consider this whenever we're giving speeches or whenever we're hearing speeches. And all of this will make us a better persuader and a more ethical persuader.